Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs, absolutely rolling on the recruiting trail. And I get it is in early May, and there's a lot of things that need to unfold and fall into place over the next couple of weeks and months. I don't think it's crazy to start having the conversation that this class in 2026 can be the most talented class that Kirby Smart has signed during his time at Georgia. Look, I get that is a very aggressive statement to make, especially as early as we are having this conversation. Georgia has signed some of the best classes that we have seen over the last couple of years. This 2026 cycle feels a little bit different, and it certainly can look a little bit different come early December. Now, what is that going to need to look like? Who is going to need to be committed to Georgia for this to come true? Is the conversation I want to get into before we do. And as always, to the Georgia fans, one, y'all let it fly in the comment section. We're going to talk about, at least from my perspective, some of the most important names for Georgia to land in the 2026 cycle. If you're a Georgia fan watching this in early May, like chances are y'all got some names to throw in the comment section as well. Please let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Going to be a blast breaking down these commitments over the next couple of days and weeks. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it now. There's something I want to start with, and that is it's one thing to sign a really talented class. We've seen some programs sign really talented classes over the last couple of years. It's a whole nother thing to sign a really talented class that checks off all the most premium positions in the sport. And that seems to be where Georgia is trending. It obviously starts with Jared Curtis. Like, if you want to get one position right on the football field, it starts at the quarterback spot. We've talked extensively about Jared Curtis. To me, a quarterback that checks all the boxes that you were looking for in a difference maker at the quarterback position. But then you start looking at some of the more other important positions on the field, especially the important positions to get right on the high school recruiting trail. To me, it starts with the offensive line. I mean, Georgia is poised to sign one of the more impressive offensive line classes that we've seen in the last couple of years as well. I want to start, though, with the commitment we saw late Sunday night from Jordan Smith. This kid can play, and he's probably going to be the forgotten member of this Georgia class in 2026 because he commits right after Jared Curtis commits, potentially right before Jackson Cantwell commits. All the media attention and conversation are going to Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell, rightfully so, two of the best players in the 2026 cycle. Jordan Smith can play, really long, really athletic, phenomenal feel as a back end defender, and a guy that you can do just about anything you want with, which is rare. And I don't say that lightly is probably the best way to put it. You look at Jordan Smith, he's got the athletic profile that you're looking for. Then you turn on the tape and say he's doing everything. He's playing box safety. He's playing boundary cornerback. He's playing as a single high safety. Phenomenal ball hawking ability at the back end, but also the ability to come up and play man coverage, the ability to come up and support the run. There's a lot of good safeties across college football. There's not a lot of safeties that you can ask them to do just about anything. To me, Jordan Smith's one of those guys. A guy that, again, probably not going to get the media attention he deserves because he's kind of sandwiched between two of the bigger recruiting storylines that we've seen in the 2026 cycle. This kid can play, and he fits what Georgia wants to do on defense. Next one, we got to talk about Jackson Camwell. You talk about, all right, if Georgia does sign the most talented class we've seen from Kirby Smart, Jackson Camwell is in this class. Another thing I love about Jackson Camwell, especially the fit for Georgia, is this kid is exactly what Georgia's looking for on the offensive line. A guy that is he's the most powerful and he's the strongest player in this 2026 cycle. He's got the weight room numbers to match up. He's got the throwing numbers in track and field to show that as well. My favorite part about Jackson Camwell, he translates that to the football field. We see some weight room warriors. We see some guys with crazy track and field times or crazy throwing metrics not necessarily translated to being a football player. Jackson Cantwell does. This is the most physically imposing offensive lineman we've seen come out of high school, in my opinion, in the last couple of years. Now, you look at Georgia, you look at the recipe of, hey, what do we want to do? What does it look like when we're a national championship caliber football team? It starts with controlling the line of scrimmage. It starts with getting that run game going. Jackson Cantwell is the guy that can do that for Georgia, potentially very early on in his career. He's one of those rare guys that you look at coming out of high school and saying, certainly could play early in his career. And you look at some of the guys Georgia signed in 2025, guys like Juan Gaston, this can be a monster and a very physically imposing offensive line over the next couple of years. Another offensive lineman to not take lightly in this class, and a guy that Georgia probably is going to end up signing, Kenny Oboko. Obviously the younger brother of a Georgia Bulldog right now, very similar to his brother, little bit of a raw prospect coming out, a guy that can play on the inside. Quite frankly, I think this kid can hold up at tackle and potentially left tackle. He's a really good athlete, has the athletic profile and frame that you're looking for, but blends it with some really nice athleticism, especially in pass protection. Now, there's probably some things that have to get cleaned up. I wouldn't say he's a guy like Jackson Camwell that can come in and play as a freshman. Going to be a really good offensive lineman, whether that's on the inside, whether that's at tackle. We talk about this all the time, and it's something that has made Georgia one of, if not the most dominant football programs across the country the last 5 years. They get it right on the offensive line. They don't have to go to the portal to fill in the offensive line, and that's the one position you don't want to have to go to the portal to get. You can go get a wide receiver. You can go get a back end defender. You can go get a running back. If you want to have a good offensive line, you cannot rely on the portal to give you those kind of guys, because they're expensive and there just ain't that many good offensive linemen that hit the portal every single year. You want to have a good offensive line, get it right at the high school ranks. It certainly looks like Georgia's going to do that in 2026. Now, another position that I think is fascinating to watch for Georgia, the running back spot. You're sitting here in early May and saying Georgia's going to have one of the best running backs in the country committed to this program. I think Savon Hitter is probably the highest on the Georgia Bulldogs wish list. I would probably argue Derek Cooper's a better running back prospect. We'll get into that in a second, regardless of who it is. I mean, you land one of Savon Hitter or Derek Cooper, you're feeling good about the running back position. And Savon Hitter is a guy that just checks all the boxes. 5'11 and a half, 200 plus pounds, 11-second 100-meter dash, can run behind his pads, can get it done between the tackles. Really good, probably the best in the class in terms of short area quickness, making people miss in short areas. Has the long speed to hit the home run plays as well. In my opinion, it's hard to find running backs that can do it all, that check all the boxes. You see your track and field running backs, you see your bruising running backs. It's hard to find the running backs that do it all. And Savon Hitter's one of them. And look, I'd argue Derek Cooper is arguably the best running back in the 2026 cycle, coming from South Florida. A really fascinating prospect early on in his high school career, in the recruiting process, you might say. A lot of people were recruiting Derek Cooper as a back seven defender. Probably would be a damn good back seven defender at that as well. The junior year film, I think, really showed why he should be a running back. This kid with the football in his hands is absolute dynamite. I think the reason a lot of people saw him as a back seven defender, he's a little bit high-waisted, doesn't necessarily look like a running back. And then you turn on the tape and say, yeah, this kid he's a running back. Even with the high-waisted frame, he really good contact balance, really good short area quicks, catches the ball out of the backfield, has the home run hitting ability, similar to Savon. Like Derek Cooper checks all those boxes, and this is where you could see Georgia's class build on itself. You land the commitment of Jackson Camwell tomorrow. If you're a running back, whether it's Derek Cooper, whether it's Savon Hitter, you're looking at it and saying, I want to run. I want to run behind a guy like Jackson Camwell for the next 3 years. Similar to when Jared Curtis committed, he started immediately recruiting Jackson Camwell. Jackson Camwell says, I want to pass protect for one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And Derek Cooper's going to want to run behind one of the best tackles in the country, and that's Jackson Camwell. You're trending. You got the best quarterback in the class, or arguably the best quarterback in the class. You're trending for the best tackle in the class. You feel really good about landing the commitment of one of the best running backs in the class. Then you look at the pass catchers. I would probably start with Mark Bowman, who I think's again, I'm not going to say Mark Bowman's going to be Brock Bowers, but this is a guy that when you watch him out there in modern day, it's like another California tight end that's going to be an absolute dog at the collegiate ranks. This is one of the more complete tight ends we've seen come out of high school in a very long time. You look at when you have the commitment of Jared Curtis, when you have the development that Georgia has shown at the tight end position, you got to think that Georgia is at least a front runner for a guy like Mark Bowman. Now, you got to battle Texas, who's probably leader in the clubhouse. Got to battle the hometown school, USC. You make no mistake about it, Georgia has a very good shot at Mark Bowman. And look, if you don't get Mark Bowman, what about Kaden Prothrow? And this kid, kind of a fascinating one. I could see him just sticking out on the boundary. Plays a lot of wide receiver at the high school ranks. Could fill out the frame and become a tight end. Very well could just sit out on the boundary and be like a Mike Evans X boundary pass catcher. You don't find many guys that move the way Kaden does at the size and catch radius he has. One of the best, look, whether he plays tight end, whether he plays wide receiver, one of the best pass catchers in this 2026 class. There ain't no question about it. I would probably think that Mark Bowman is the premium target for Georgia at the tight end spot. Georgia's very much so in the mix for Kaden Prothrow as well. Very similar to Derek Cooper, Savon Hitter. You feel good about Georgia landing one of these two guys. Then you look at the defensive side of the football, and it starts with Tyler Atkinson. Now, I'll say this. I think the defensive line class in 2026 is probably it's nowhere near what it was in 2025. And I think that's why you saw Georgia really fill it up with those guys like Elijah Griffin in 2025. Well, the off-ball linebacker class, specifically in the state, whether it's Xavier Griffin, whether it's Tyler Atkinson, is loaded. And you feel like Georgia's going to land at least one of them. And you look at Tyler Atkinson, 6'2", 210. This is that premier run and chase off-ball linebacker. He's got the length. He's got the size. He's got the speed to go sideline to sideline, fly around the football field, can come off the edge when we know Georgia likes to send their backers on blitzes. Another massive guy that Georgia's probably the leader in the clubhouse for. I mean, you start looking at these position groups and saying, and Georgia's probably going to have a top player at almost every single position across the football field in 2026. They got a really good class right now. Top 10 class in the country with only 9 commitments. That's going to move in the right direction if you can close on Jackson Camwell tomorrow. There's plenty of other top targets on the board for Georgia. Now, again, there's a very long way to go for Georgia in 2026, especially if you want to have the conversation of, is this the best class Georgia has signed? We're certainly in that area. You get Jared Curtis, you land Jackson Camwell, you just landed Jordan Smith yesterday. It's going to get sneaky really, really good for Georgia in the 2026 cycle. We'll pause it there. Please let it fly in the comment section in terms of names you want to see in this 2026 cycle. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.